Good day, everyone. My name is Alton Bedward, and today I'll be sharing with you some information about my world, the world of coffee. If you understand the world of coffee, you understand the way of the world. Coffee is the drink that unites mankind. Originating in Ethiopia, it grows throughout the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn, which is very much the center of the globe. And this means that it does have ecological effects on our environment. For the most part, coffee is grown in regions where it is not indigenous. And the varieties which are grown are generally mountainous, which means that they will grow in mountainous regions, which basically also host forests. Here in Jamaica, we have the world's most prized coffee, which is our world famous Jamaica Blue Mountain coffee, or Jamaica High Mountain Supreme and Jamaica Prime Washed. For the most part, coffee is grown above 2,000 feet above sea level, or they're about 600 meters. The highest point in the Blue Mountain of Jamaica, which is also the highest point on the island, is some 7,402 feet above sea level. And the Blue Mountain region, which grows this coffee, spans 3 parishes in very densely forested areas. Hence, the eco balance is very important. Not only does coffee affect the flora, it affects fauna and wildlife and human habitation. So striking that balance is very important. But with coffee, it's not that hard because naturally it is a forested plant. But its place in the forest is that of a secondary forest plant, not a primary nor tertiary plant, which means that it can survive within an ecosystem with a primary forest. So here at our estate, we're fully certified and the first in the Caribbean, the Creighton Estate, to attain the Rainforest Alliance certification by an initiative put in place by Greenpeace, which means that we must protect the environment in which we grow coffee, along with the community around it. Hence, we must protect wildlife as well, whilst cultivating coffee. What this has done, it has basically led us to using more sustainable means of cultivating coffee. We also operate the property as an attraction site, so that eco balance is just as important, and we don't necessarily want to leave what is called a bad footprint. So for every acre of coffee grown here, we plant 30 indigenous trees of 12 different species, hardwood, softwood, and fruit trees, which provide a habitat for our bird population, which is our major wildlife here on the property. Um, we also protect the lower layers of the forest, which is the small plants, and that basically will produce pollen consistently for the insect population, which we must also protect. Hence, we do not use high or very aggressive herbicides. All of our weed maintenance is done manually, or we use whatever is prescribed by the Rainforest Alliance. This basically means that we reduce the use of pesticides, and coffee is affected by many pests. So we have to use low dose and more conservative means of trying to protect the plant, cultivating a crop, and also maintaining the eco balance. For example, neem oil is used to keep off fungus, and that has been very, very effective. It does not leave a print, and it is organic. Now, most of our input in terms of fertilizers for nutrition, we depend a lot on chicken manure, which may produce as much as 70% of the nitrogen that the plants need. But the constant foliage, where the most of our plants that we grow are nitrous producing, consistently shed leaves, and that it adds to the nutrition of the soil. We do not use a lot of mechanized, or we do not use mechanized means of cultivating coffee. So from harvesting, planting, and maintenance, it is manual. So we do not depend on machineries, which would basically leave a carbon footprint, or you should say, may pollute the environment. So most of our work is manual. It is hard work, but it's the only way to go. And we grow coffee on these very steep slopes in a very conservative manner. So we don't necessarily degrade or recreate an environment conducive of cultivating coffee, but we try our best to grow the coffee in areas where it is possible. Hence, the production is somewhat not high, but the quality is exceptional. And that is basically a way of maintaining our very high standard as the world's most favored coffee, a luxury coffee, 100% Jamaican Blue Mountain. Now, we do grow bananas, and that is a utility crop. So initially, bananas would have been used, especially by smaller farmers and plantains, because they are huge tubers with large leaves and they provide the shade. Currently now, those that we have on the property are really temporary shade because we have now established permanent shade. So whatever we grow, our workers are allowed to take them, and schools within the community or groupings who need the fruit can get it as well. So it is not necessarily sold. Now, in terms of the long-term benefit, with the forested areas and more trees on the property, it will reduce the volumes of coffee produced, but it will also improve on the quality per bean. And that leads to long-term efficiency in terms of not producing high volumes, but very high quality. And in terms of the long-term maintenance of moisture, we do have rainy seasons, and then we have periods in which we have very low rainfall. So it is very important that we have a tree population that can store the water in the soil for a prolonged period. And we're not necessarily affected by wide-scale soil erosion or wind erosion, which may occur. So the Rainforest Alliance has basically been very, very beneficial to the way we cultivate coffee, and better helps us to understand that we can produce coffee not only by using monocultural methods, but basically embracing diversity. So your cup of coffee now basically will leave, you could say, will leave less carbon footprint. And you're also enhancing the environment, protecting wildlife by growing and consuming coffee in a sustainable manner. No herbicides, manual weeding, act as mulch. No herbicides, manual weeding. Undergrowth, controlled undergrowth. Undergrowth, controlled undergrowth for rejuvenation. No herbicide. So one of the main factors in terms of coffee and its impact on environment is that it is mountainous. So these mountains are also watershed areas. So it provides a lot of the water for domestic consumption in Kingston. And also these rivers will lead all the way to the ocean. So it is very, very important that we suppress soil erosion. And a means of doing this is conserving the undergrowth. Now, the bulk of Jamaica's undergrowth shrubbery are actually flowering plants, especially here on the estate. So they consistently produce a pollen. These pollens will basically feed an insect population, especially bees, the butterflies. And as you can see, even here, you have caterpillars feeding on shrubbery in a commercial coffee estate or an active coffee estate. So this basically further illustrates that there's not any excessive pesticides on these plants and the insects can consume them. These caterpillars will eventually become butterflies and add to the whole ecosystem. The bees will basically gather these pollens and also pollinate other plants, which is very, very important for sustainability. The undergrowth filters the amount of water that enters the soil. And it also, with its small roots, help to keep the soil fairly stable. So we do not get wash off or runoff of matter when we do have heavy rain or excessive wind. So that is the importance of maintaining the undergrowth. Now, the secondary are the bushes such as coffee, and on its own cannot sustain the ecosystem, but they do play their part, as many fruits trees will do. and they provide fruit. They provide food, which would be coffee in this instance. And there are other plants, other fruit, local fruits such as guava and other berries, which are generally bushes, and they feed animals and also feed the human population. And they can be found here on the property as well. Now, above the bushes, what you have are the primary forest trees. These are hardwood, softwoods, and fruit trees. Now, the bulk of the plants that we have here, they basically serve two purposes. Not only do they provide shade, but most of these plants are naturally nitrogen fixers. So they will put nitrogen into the soil, which is needed by the coffee plants. And they also shed leaves periodically. And this leaves and constant shedding of foliage will add to the organic matter in the soil, keeping the soil very healthy. Now, there are a few plants which are also symbiotic with the cycles of coffee and will shed leaves generally in tangent when the coffee plants need sunlight, and reproduces leaves for shade when the coffee basically needs shade. They also will open their leaves at daybreak, but as sunset, these leaves will close. Now, being here in the mountains where the air is much cooler, there's a heavy dew, and this dew overnight will fall onto the coffee plants. And by daybreak, these leaves open again, providing this shade, and the coffee can absorb that moisture. These plants also provide the perfect habitat for the bird population. And again, you can see the flow. Insects, reptiles such as lizards, which feed on insects, and the birds will feed on the reptiles such as lizards. So again, growing coffee, we're still maintaining Thank you for your time. The food chain and the ecosystem.